If you ask a random anime and manga fan what their favorite series from the 80s is, you'll probably hear a few answers. Dragon Ball, Urusei Yatsura, Akira, Fissa North Star, Ranma, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. All of these works have something in common. There's a good chance you can go over to your local bookstore, and if they have a manga section, odds are at least one of these will be on the shelves. They've all gotten translated into English and published officially, at least where I am in the States. However, while mangaka like Rumiko Takahashi, Akira Toriyama, and Buronson have had their classic works published in English for decades, there is one mangaka who defined the 80s as well. It only sparingly made it overseas in the last decade. The strangest part? His works at first glance seem to be the easiest to adapt, since they're based on America's pastime. This is the story of Mitsuru Adachi, one of the most overlooked mangaka in the country that created the game that would define his stories, baseball. But before we look at the beginning of Adachi's career in his first original series, 9, we should first try to understand the history and cultural impact of baseball in Japan, since this diverged quite a bit from how it is in the States. Baseball was first introduced to the shores of Japan by Horace Wilson, an English professor hired by the Meiji government of Japan to help modernize the education system. In 1872, he introduced his students to baseball as a way for them to get more physical exercise. The sport grew over the next decade, with the first organized adult team being established in 1878, but it was not until 1896 that the sport really started to become popular, as a team from Ichigo High School in Tokyo soundly beat a team of foreigners from the Yokohama Country and Athletic Club. This was seen as yet another example of the Meiji Japan getting up to snuff with the West, and the game exploded in popularity around the nation heading into the 20th century. While professional leagues began to crop up in the 20s and 30s, creating an enduring legacy that has cemented itself as the most popular sport in Japan, what's really the focus of many of Adachi's works is high school baseball, and especially the two national tournaments held in the historic Koshien Stadium, the National High School Baseball Invitational Tournament in March, and especially the National High School Baseball Championship in August. You can think of the latter as a sort of analog to March Madness in its popularity among sports fans watching at the amateur level. Koshien is a big deal to many in Japan, and it's a great source of pride for one school to say that they've been able to make it there. The tournament in many ways feels like a unifying celebration of Japan, taking place during the Obon holidays. Koshien is one of the few ways Japanese citizens are able to display their regional pride through sports, in much the same way many root for their alma maters to make it to the Final Four. One of the key reasons Japan took such a liking to baseball is that it was the first truly team sport to be played in the nation, unlike older sports like sumo or kendo, which are strictly one-on-one affairs. So every year, tens of thousands crowd Koshien to see if their pick can beat the odds and become champions of the nation, while millions watch live on television from all around the nation and the world. While in America, baseball, once the most popular sport in the 20th century, has taken a bit of a backseat to football and basketball, it remains king in Japan. And through these videos, you'll see how Adachi really taps into the cultural significance of baseball as a symbol of youthful vigor to craft some truly remarkable stories. Now, let's see how Adachi himself got started. Adachi himself gives an autobiographical recount of how he got his foot in the manga industry in the one-shot My Sweet Sunday, made to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Shonen Sunday. As a young boy in 50s Japan, Adachi was taken by the reader submissions in the manga of the time, since if you got published in them, you got an original piece of mangaka mailed to you. So, throughout his youth, Adachi and his brother drew countless faces, slowly honing his craft. Around his 16th birthday, the magazine Calm by Osamu Tezuka himself began to be published. Having a section for newcomers to the medium, Adachi's brother inspired him to start sending his original works to Calm, but it wasn't until 1969 that he had an interview with Shonen Sunday, where he got his first taste of real feedback from Ishimi Izami, but managed to become one of his assistants as Izami saw potential in him. Striving to improve his craft, he bounced around through the 70s doing adaptations for multiple magazines before returning to Shonen Sunday in 1978, publishing his first original series, 9, in Shonen Sunday Super, with his first chapter being published only a day after the first chapter of Urusei Yatsura graced the pages of Weekly Shonen Sunday. With the two mangaka that would define a generation of Shonen Sunday readers getting started, Adachi could finally start illustrating the stories he really wanted to tell, starting with 9. 9 is a series that's not only overlooked overall in the West as one of Adachi's works, it's even a bit overlooked in Japan, being overshadowed by his later works. Through reading the manga and watching the anime film trilogy made in 1983 and 1984, it definitely feels like an earlier version of the stories he would later publish, but it's worth looking at on its own, since it's an entertaining and endearing series all the same. 9 follows the story of best friends Katsuya Nimi and Susumu Karasawa, accomplished athletes in track and judo respectively, deciding upon coming to Seishu High to both commit to the baseball team instead of their previous sports after seeing a girl crying while watching a baseball game. The series covers all 4 years of their high school journey as they learn and improve at the game while having to deal with romantic drama and forging their team into a true brotherhood. I found myself really enjoying this story, even if it's nothing too special on the surface, because Adachi's writing gives emotional depth to these characters that seem simple on the surface. While the series is ostensibly about baseball, it's really more about navigating adolescence. This is shown most clearly through Katsuya, who has difficulties with developing his relationship with Yuri Nakao, the same girl he saw crying at the beginning. Yuri is the daughter of the coach of the team, and much of the reason Katsuya strives to improve the team is to make her smile, since the team has never been particularly good. After all, the place they are going to school is mostly known for their academics. However, he soon crosses paths with Kentaro Yamanaka, Yuri's childhood friend who is an ace pitcher at Bunan High, after he reunites with Yuri, setting off a rivalry between him and Katsuya over her. The animation, while somewhat simplistic and outdated for the time, is still recognizably Adachi, and the rougher line work, absent from his future series, reminds me a lot of Tetsuya Chiba's works. Adachi's low-key scenes are honestly my favorites, since they're really just as important as more plot-heavy ones, and show more subtly how the events the characters are going through impact them. I'm going to be spoiling later story elements in the ending of this, so if you want to watch or read this for yourself, I'd encourage you to click off now and come back after you've seen or read it. Just search for 9 Original Bound at your local cat theme tracker and view the uploader's profile for the other films. If you got a free evening or two, it's definitely worth the watch, and Orphan Fan Subs did an excellent job as always with these films. You back? Alright, let's get into this more. After an important scene where Katsuya and his friends convince the father of Eiji Kurohashi, the most experienced former baseball player at his school, to relent, forcing him to not play in high school, the story progresses smoothly until a wild card enters the picture. Yukimi Yasuda. Being the skilled track athlete that she is, she's always admired Katsuya, and after transferring to his school, she starts making moves on him. From the outset, it's clear that he's uninterested, but too nice to outright reject her. So for a while, there's a back and forth drama as Yukimi keeps trying to get him to help her train for a track meet, something she ends up losing. I know a lot of people don't care for this kind of unnecessary drama, but I always found it endearing, and his phone call to Yuri after a disaster involving her birthday and being stuck at Yukimi's house was very touching. Overall, the first film and its corresponding manga volumes did a good job in establishing the main class, and starting plot threads that be explored more in time. The second film, Declaring Love, set during the character's second year, is probably my favorite, since this one goes all in on the relationship drama with the introduction of Jiro, Kentaro's younger brother, who we see develop over the course of the film from being just some cool guy to a selfless team player, after Yukimi rejects and calls him out for trying to make moves on her. While Seishu once again doesn't make it to Koshien, they come much closer than before. The most touching scenes to me are Katsuya finally formally rejecting Yukimi after being encouraged by his friends to stop being half-hearted, and then him giving Jiro the go-ahead to go out with her, culminating in an iconic chase scene. Too often do these kinds of romantic rivalries end in scorn and broken friendships, so seeing these characters handle it so maturely was refreshing. The movie then ends with a now determined Katsuya reaffirming his commitment to Yuri. I thought the scarf was a really nice touch. Overall, the second film did a great job in exploring and resolving much of the drama set up in the previous film, and it stands out as a result. The third and quite literally final film deals with wrapping up everyone's stories. And this starts with the coach catching a mild sickness and having to be temporarily hospitalized. playing up his conditions so that the now 3rd year students will buckle down and push it for making it to Koshien. In the middle of this, a side story I really enjoyed was seeing Susumu get some character development of his own. While he's been on the team from the start, his character mostly just served as comic relief. Seeing him have to overcome a batting slump while dealing with Takagi Yoko, an artist with the goal to become a mangaka herself, berating him over his performance on the field costing them multiple games was nice to see, especially as his feeling towards her changed. Another little bit of drama, which kind of is necessary at this point, is Katsuya freaking out over AG buying shampoo and saying it's for his girlfriend and it's the same kind Yuri said she liked, leading him to believe he's actually trying to go for her, only for it to all be a big misunderstanding. After all of this, with the team in peak form, they made it to Koshien, and even though they weren't the ones who ultimately won it all, just making it at all was a triumph in itself. The film then winds down, showing the characters' senior years as they prepare to move on to their adult lives and are as such no longer actively playing on the baseball team, but always having their cherished years in the baseball team to look back on. Looking at the series as a whole, Adachi, like in any good sports film, did a great job in creating a classic underdog story with characters you can't help but root for. But the additional relationship nuance is really what makes this stand out for me. 9 is less of a sports series of rom-com elements and more of a rom-com with a sports theme. And one of the defining characteristics of it is the fact that Adachi broke away from the norm of making the protagonist of a sports series be utterly focused on rising above the odds and becoming a success. As in 9, it's not about winning, it's about having fun. The students on the team not only all know that they don't have the talents or resources to become professional baseball players, it's also just not really what they want out of life. People tend to forget that at the end of the day, sports are games. They may be games we place great cultural significance on and revolve our lives around, but they are still games. The most important part of a game is being able to have fun with it. This is most clearly shown by how the team reacted to losing in Koshien. Rather than being broken by it and constantly lamenting their failures, they're happy that they're able to make it that far at all. This is also shown in the storytelling. The drama in the characters' school lives never plays a backseat to baseball, but rather stands on equal footing. Since baseball isn't their lives, it's just something they do for fun. While it's not perfect, you could definitely feel how fast-paced it is as they try to cram all the manga volumes in only a few hours, and the characters aren't the deepest as a result. Even the manga, I would have liked more depth in Katsuya and Yuri's relationship. The simplicity and lighthearted nature of the films feels refreshing. I know the abundance of insert songs somewhat feels like padding, but I couldn't help but enjoy them since they give a sense of atmosphere to the story as it moves from season to season. The production values definitely detract a bit from the experience in much the same way early Urusei Yatsura does. But if you can overlook these, then it's a worthwhile trilogy. The manga is worth reading if you want a slower paced version of all this, as well as some better art. Just know that the only thing we have in English is a scanlation, but it's a very good one, all 5 volumes. 9 didn't rock the world, but it was a good framework for Adachi they could build on for his future works. While the next manga he wrote was Sunny Ryoko, that one didn't get adapted until a few years down the line, so next time we'll be covering Adachi's first real international hit, and the 2 Miyukis it's all about. See you then!